My husband had just passed away when the haunting began at home. The very first night, a shadowy figure appeared on the window pane. The next night, I received a text message from my husband. I even saw him standing on the lake. Then I jolt awake from my dreams. I felt my husband wanted to tell me something, so I began going through his belongings. He was an architect, yet his sketches were filled with all kinds of mazes. At the end of the drawings was the very cottage we lived in. But strangely, the blueprints showed two houses. They were mirror images, symmetrical left and right. Yet I had never heard my husband mention this. The third night, I was awakened by a tremendous noise. Thinking my husband had returned, I grabbed my flashlight and went out to look. Suddenly, three women emerged from the darkness. They scaled the railing and plunged into the lake, but the water held nothing. I looked up. Across the lake, a house had mysteriously appeared. Suddenly, a man's voice echoed through the air. Following the sound, I made my way to the dock. A small boat lay moored at the shore, its hull completely covered in blood. Just as I turned to leave, a pair of bloody footprints appeared on the dock. Then the blood-stained footprints began walking toward me. I reached out to touch, but a sudden force lifted me up and placed me onto the small boat. Soon the small boat came to a stop. I found myself on the opposite shore of the lake. As I approached, I saw the entire house was a perfect mirror image of mine. Even the house number was reversed, and several women who looked remarkably like me lived there. Then I saw my dead husband. I was stunned. Then I rushed inside. Suddenly, night turned to day. I saw another, me sleeping on the sofa. Then I jolted awake. I refused to believe this was merely a dream. My husband's secret must be hidden in that house. So I resolved to cross the lake and investigate. And I did find a house, though it remained unfinished. Then, on the second floor, I discovered a doll stuffed with iron nails. A wave of terror washed over me. After returning home, I rummaged through my husband's belongings once more. What I found were numerous books of an evil nature. Then, on his computer, I discovered photos of many unfamiliar women who bore an uncanny resemblance to me.